everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this series on the human form so far. I'm continuing with this video. In it, I will complete the male torso that I made previously. If you have not watched the earlier videos in this series, I suggest you do so before watching this one. So let's get started. For the male, I have chosen a more difficult pose. In this position, it appears he is in the middle of a leap, so his arms and legs are in more extreme positions than the female was. The right leg in particular will be bent at a right angle, perilously close to a closed pose. I add the right leg first. I use 20mm rod, but roll up an even larger gather than I did for the female. I tap it on the marber to make it not round as I did before. I heat the landing pad and push the gather onto it the same way I did before, being careful to cover the entire landing pad but not to push beyond it. I heat the knee area until it draws out and pull the entire thigh into position. I continue to draw the knee out until it is narrower than knees should be. Then I adjust my heat gradient to begin to gather up the calf. Once I have enough glass for the calf, and while everything is still hot and moving, I concentrate my heat on the shin until it begins to move more than the calf. Then I draw the entire lower leg out into position. I burn off the ankle, roll up the heel, and add the foot as I did in the first figure. Then I dab on the knee. The left leg will be bent at a right angle. For limbs that are bent at right angles or more, I add them in 2 moves instead of just 1. I gather up the thigh and tap it on the marber pad to make it not round. I heat the landing pad and push the gather onto it in the same manner I did before. I heat the knee area until it starts to move, and then draw out the entire thigh into the proper shape and angle. But this time, I continue heating and pulling until I burn off the working rod, leaving a tapered end. I melt the tapered end back until the knee area is the proper thickness. I remove material if I have to. I restore my heat base with the Bunsen burner and clean up any sculpting in the pelvic area that has been melted or distorted by the addition of legs. On this figure, I had to add a bit more material to the butt area. The scrotal bulge in particular may need reinforcement. This is not so much for the sake of detail as it is for the sake of proper contouring in the pelvic region. Then I create a landing pad on the back of the knee with my paddle at the angle the calf will be positioned. This landing pad is almost parallel to the thigh and extends back about 1/4 of the way to the pelvis. I use a piece of 15mm rod to create the calf. I create the gather and allow it to cool slightly. Then I heat one side of the gather until it glows and seal it onto the heated landing pad. This lopsided seal creates the bulge of the calf. I use gravity to allow the heated calf gather to fall upward toward the thigh, being careful not to allow it to touch any more of the thigh than the landing pad. This is to preserve the calf bulge. I heat the shin area and draw out the lower leg at a right angle to the upper leg. Once I'm happy with the leg, I can roll up the heel and add the foot. I dab on the knee, and while the knee area is hot, Adjust the position of the left leg until it is the way I want it. This seal will require some cleanup. The weld will need smoothing, and any acute angles must be dealt with. The knee won't look right until it is gathered up a bit and shaped. Now I bridge the feet and attach a handle to the bottom of the right foot. I burn off the handle from the neck and prepare the neck for the addition of the skull. As I did in the female figure, I gather up enough material for the head and add it at a slightly tipped forward pose, visualizing the head as I do so. I use my paddle to roughly shape the skull. Then I draw out the chin and shape the jaw. I sculpt the face, indenting the eyes and adding cheekbones, lips, and nose. I add ears by making small dabs at the top of the jawline and paddling them flat at a forward angle. I cold seal the top of the head, heat the neck, and pose the head. Then I clean up any issues in the neck area. The male needs hair too, and it is done the same way the female was. This hairstyle will be short, no ponytail. Well, maybe a little ducktail. I restore my heat base and prepare to add the arms. I use 12mm rod and add the arms the same way I did with the female, only the male's arms are more massive, so I exaggerate the size of the gathers. As before, I leave the end of the arm in a small flattened ball. I will sculpt the hand later. The left arm will be bent at a right angle, so as I did with the right leg, it will be added in two parts. I add the upper arm and burn the rod off at the elbow. Then I reinforce the deltoids with small dabs of glass and heat them in with my mini torch. If I want, I can come back and add little dabs of glass to emphasize certain muscles like the biceps and the forearms. Finally, I add the right forearm at a right angle to the upper arm. I leave enough material at the end for the hand and flatten it into a disc. Like the left leg, these right angle connections usually require a little cleanup sculpting. And here is the final figure. I will anneal it and then do the fine sculpting on the hands and feet while the figure is cold and can be easily held in my hand. First, I draw out some small diameter rod for the fingers. I prefer to draw out my own rather than use manufactured rod because I can make it the diameter I want and do it very quickly. The male's hands are a bit larger and bulkier than the female's, so I begin with the basic palm shape, made just a little larger and thicker. I use small diameter rod to draw out the fingers one by one, taking care not to melt the previous one as I add the next one. Note the angle of the flame as I apply it to the top of the palm. There is really only one direction that will work, from the front, just grazing the top of the palm. I heat the tiny welds to reinforce them and adjust the pose of the fingers as needed. Once all the fingers and thumb are added, I complete the other hand in the same manner. Since this figure is leaping through the air, I'll spend a little more time on the toes. They won't be melted when mounting this figure like the female. Instead of adding the toes, I prefer to make small slices with my sharp knife to separate them. By carefully carving and paddling, I can create the toes and pose them in a similar manner to how I did the fingers. Here, I am trying to extend the leaping pose by how I shape the toes. And there he is, looking like Jack Be Nimble.
And here he is. I think it came out reasonably well, and it looks just like the reference. Hopefully yours will too. If not, practice makes perfect.
That completes the male figure. Next up in the series, we'll be doing a hollow human form. Thanks for watching. Please like this video, and above all, subscribe to my channel. See you next time.